Welcome to the Topical Capacity Building component of CDBG National Objectives module that will provide additional guidance for determining low and moderate income service areas. We will determine which of two parks in the town of Riverwood are eligible for CDBG park improvement. This session will explain the three basic requirements for a low and moderate income area and 5 key considerations for determining an activity service area. The CDBG statute requires that at least 70% of non-administrative non-section 108 loan repayment CDBG expenditures are for activities that meet the low and moderate income national objective. CDBG activities may meet the low and moderate income national objective in 4 different ways: area benefit, limited clientele, housing, or jobs. This presentation reviews the criteria to be met for a CDBG activity to qualify as a low and moderate income area benefit. An activity must meet 3 basic requirements in order to qualify under the low and moderate income area national objective. The activity must occur in a predominantly residential area and benefit all residents of the service area. The activity service area must be at least 51% low and moderate income. The activity service area must be primarily residential. To determine if an activity meets all 3 of these criteria, CDBG grantees and units of general local government must first define the service area for the activity. There are 5 factors to consider when determining an activity service area: the nature of the activity, for instance, what is the activity, who will this activity benefit, the location of the activity, where is the activity physically located, access to the site or the benefit of the activity, for instance, can all residents of the designated service area reasonably access the site or the benefit of the activity. These are availability of comparable facilities of services in the jurisdiction, for instance, where are other comparable sites or services located, boundaries. These are established boundaries such as subdivisions, neighborhoods, school districts, fire districts, or census tract block groups. Physical boundaries such as highways, rivers, or train tracks. To illustrate these requirements, let's consider the example of the City of Rivertown, where the City Council directed staff to use CDBG funds to make improvements to at least one of the city's 2 public parks. Staff understands that public facilities improvements is an eligible activity, but they are not sure if one or both parks will meet the low and moderate income area national objective. Using the steps they learned at training, staff carefully considers each of the 5 factors to define the service area for each park. The nature of the activity is a public facilities and improvements project that will improve one or more public parks. The activity has 2 proposed locations. Park number 1 is located south of the river in a block group that is not primarily low and moderate income, but on the side of the river where all the block groups, when taken together, are 62% low and moderate income. Park number 2 is located north of the river in a block group that is primarily low and moderate income, but on the side of the river where all the block groups, when taken together, are only 40% low and moderate income. Access to the benefit of the activity does not seem to be an issue. For both parks, residents of all ages have access to enjoy the open space, walking trails, and picnic areas at either facility. Availability of comparable facilities or services also does not seem to be an issue. There are 2 parks in Rivertown, so neither park serves the entire city, which is less than 51% low and moderate income. Established boundaries, such as subdivisions or fire districts, are not an issue for a park improvement activity because the nature of the activity does not rely on those types of boundaries. If the activity were a residential sidewalk improvement project or construction of a fire station, these types of established boundaries would be important considerations. However, the physical boundary of the river is a significant issue that impacts the service area for each park. Residents south of the river are most likely going to use park number 1, while residents north of the river are most likely to use park number 2. Based on the staff's analysis, park number 1 is eligible for CDBG assistance because the service area comprises all of the block groups south of the river, where most of the block groups are primarily residential, and where all of the block groups, when combined, are 62% low and moderate income. Initially, staff thought Park 2 would be eligible because Park 2 is located in a low and moderate income block group. However, by carefully considering the nature of the activity, the locations of the parks, resident access to the parks, the availability of comparable facilities, and the physical boundary presented by the river, staff correctly determined that Park Number 2 would not qualify and that CDBG funds should be awarded only to rehabilitate Park Number 1. Rivertown staff presented their analysis to decision makers at the city, who then awarded CDBG funds to make improvements to Park Number 1, and who also directed staff to identify non-CDBG funds in a future budget cycle to address the rehabilitation needs at Park Number 2. Thank you for watching the Topical Capacity Building component of CDBG National Objectives module. We learned how to determine if an activity qualifies under the Low and Moderate Income Area Benefit National Objective. Please proceed to the Reinforce component of this module for a brief quiz.